Welcome to Monkey Chatter. This is Lara, and we are tackling another subject that we've been wanting to discuss on here for quite a while. It's basically breathing, breath work. It was all based on a book called Breath, which is by James Nestor. I'm going to show it since I think we might be on YouTube now. I don't know. Probably backwards, but
I think we might be.
it's a huge yellow book. It's really long. It's written by a journalist, though. It's written really well, and it talks about his story from kind of poor health and not feeling good, and how a breathwork session changed his life. So that just kind of resonated with me because I read it during 2020 when I was also going through yoga teacher training. And then I started hearing about it everywhere after that. And so we've all read it too. We've all read it, right? I think we have. Yeah. So I kind of thought it would be fun to maybe start the session with just a little brief breath work, or I shouldn't even say breath work. This is more of like a yogic breathing exercise that the three of us can just do. And if you guys are listening and you're not driving, you can follow along. Do this if you're in a place where you can just pay attention to your breathing and not other things around you, like cooking, watching kids, or driving. You can even do it at your desk if your boss doesn't know. Yeah, disclaimer alert. Yeah. But before we do that, I thought there's a little passage in the book that talks about how breathing and being focused on breathing has been around for a very, very long time, and how it relates to yoga. This was like, I don't know, like back in 500, I think, BC. They say BCE in the book. These were techniques that would be worked into the Yoga Sutras, which were kind of like, Yoga Sutras were like the book of yoga. But back then, yoga was an exercise. It wasn't asana flows and, hot yoga and, all that stuff. It was really a way for people to become more enlightened and to be healthier mentally and physically. So,
Lara, I just have to say you look very professor-like with your glasses on.
I have my
very
glasses
studious.
Yeah, so when I read, I have to have reading glasses now. It's a lovely thing of being in my 50s. But slow breathing, breath holding, deep breathing, all these things kind of appeared in this ancient text. So this is when he talks about how it relates to the ocean, and I use it a lot when I lead yoga meditations or yoga nidra. So think of this as a lead up into how we can focus on our breath. So this is from the Yoga Sutra 2.51. When a wave comes, it washes over you and runs up the beach. Then the wave turns around and recedes over you, going back to the ocean. This is like the breath, which exhales, transitions, inhales, transitions, and then starts the process again. So I'm going to invite you now to join me in a little bit of just relaxing yoga breathing. And basically imagining that your breath is like an ocean wave. You are welcome to close your eyes if you'd like, or you can just turn your gaze inward into your body. So sit nice and tall. Allow your spine to lengthen. Relax your shoulders. Notice your jaw and release any tension in the jaw. And then place one hand over your navel and slowly breathe into the belly. Notice the belly expanding with each breath in and deflating with each breath out. Notice this just the next breath or two. Really letting the belly expand on the inhale and relax back into the spine on the exhale. Now gently move the hand up. Move your hand to where it's just covering the bottom of the rib cage or the solar plexus area. This is the area of the diaphragm. Focus the breath now into the location of the hand, allowing the ribs to expand with each inhale and feeling them retract with each exhale. Continue noticing the rib cage expanding on the inhales and contracting on the exhales. Become aware that this is the action of the diaphragm as it moves down, pushing the belly out, expanding the rib cage to inflate the lungs. Now move your hand up on the collarbone area, the upper chest. Rest your hand here and allow the chest to spread out, almost as if your shoulders were dropping back and your heart space was opening with each inhale. Allow the chest to spread wide open on the inhale and then just withdraw and release on the exhale. Let's do this for a couple breaths. Now the next phase is to connect all three of these sensations into one breath. So inhaling into the belly, then the lower rib cage, and the chest. And then exhaling in the opposite direction, emptying the chest, then the rib cage, and then the belly. You can move your hand up and down if that helps you connect with those sensations. And it may feel somewhat awkward at first, but if some practice, you will notice it feeling pretty easy to do. Typically, you would continue this for 10 to 15 breaths. And then just let your breathing relax and return to normal. Come back to the space that you're in and open your eyes if they were closed. And yawning is a good thing. It means you're relaxing. So, yogic breathing is a really basic technique of yoga, all yoga. But then there's things like box breathing, which is just evenly braced. There's something called Nadi breathing, which is you hold a finger or a thumb and a finger to your nose and you breathe up one nostril, out the other. There's all these different things. There's 4-7-8 breathing, which was Dr. Andrew Weil. That also, all these things calm and relax the nervous system. So you can reduce your heart rate variability. There's so many health benefits to just regularly checking in with your breath. So thanks for practicing with me, guys. How do y'all feel?
Like, I'm not going to finish this podcast.
Amy's completely gone back. So I read Breath, the book that we're talking about, as we were taking care of my mom, who eventually passed from emphysema and COPD. And so I was really trying to, because as you can't breathe, right, it really increases your anxiety, as you can imagine. And it would have been and Lara, you helped me a bit with this, but I was just too late to the party with her. I think it would have been so helpful if, as she was developing that disease, because it's a slow progressing thing. I mean, it's over years, right? If she had learned some of these techniques and really explored breath work a little bit more and yoga a little bit more, I think it would have been so helpful to her as she was, especially as it got harder and harder to breathe, because there's a lot of fear when you can't get your breath. And so I used to, I would have her, try to do, at least more exhale than inhale, and that would seem to be helpful and calming and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But just for anybody who is having trouble with some sort of breathing illness or disease, or working with a loved one, the sooner you can figure out some of these, I think the better. And it was good for both of us, because usually when she was stressed, I'd be stressed, right? I'm like, oh my God, now she's all stressed out and I can't get her to calm down. And then I'm like, so doing breathing exercises together
Mm-hmm.
really helped both of us. So I could kind of, calm down too. And then that made her calmer. And so it was really an interesting time to read this book, when I was, managing, with my brothers, her decline from that disease. Yeah. That
Yeah,
was
and
it. Yeah. Anyway.
well, there's so many people who suffer from things like COPD and emphysema and asthma, and even allergies can affect your breathing.
Yeah.
Um, I've really noticed it being involved with salt therapy, because it's a good um, it's a good way to relieve some of those symptoms. But it's really amazing how, like you said, Amy, or Michelle, when you can sit with
How could you
somebody else.
confuse the two
I
of
don't know.
us?
I just do that all the time.
That's okay. You can confuse me with Amy. She's like,
Yeah,
a
you
few
can.
years younger than me, and
You're
really a
both
lot more fit.
amazing.
Yeah,
You're
so
both
rock
amazing women.
on.
Um, I have found the same thing. Like, even like with my mom, who's just she's deals with anxiety. She's not healthy. She's dealing now with recovery from strokes and some dementia, and just sitting and breathing with her and walking her through a simple exercise like that, you can just see her whole body relax. And you can see it when you lead a group of people, or you can feel it. There's like a co-regulation happens as well when you're next, actually physically with someone, probably even online, who knows. um but it is kind of amazing that just something so simple as our breath has so much influence. It's kind of like when we did the sleep series, we were floored at how important sleep was to every
Yeah.
bodily function. Well, breath is kind of the same thing. And he talks about all of that in the book. And a big part of what he talks about is breathing properly while you sleep.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
um, and I don't know about you guys, but as I'm aging, and I don't have sleep apnea or anything like that, but I do sometimes, when I get my allergies start going and my nose is congested, I'll like wake myself up snoring. It's not really snoring, it's like a snort, like one single snort. I'll snort myself awake and I'll be like, oh my gosh.
What's that? What is happening?
But there's even techniques to help your nose decongest itself. And he talks about that in the book. Um, And then, like you were saying, Amy, extending the exhale longer than the inhale, which is kind of a method to calm yourself, but it also changes up the carbon dioxide oxygen balance, and that's a whole physiological effect on the body that's a positive. I mean, there's so much to it. Um, and I would think Amy is a runner.
I was gonna just say
Like,
that.
breathing has got to be so key. Like, do they teach you different ways to breathe when you're like a distance runner versus a sprinter or whatever?
Yeah, so I'm not a sprinter, so I don't know.
Not sure what those people are doing.
This
Yeah.
girl goes long and slow. That's my speed. But um yeah, I definitely like try to kind of breathe in cadence with your butt fall, and there's multiple, I guess, schools of thought on like how many, and how many footsteps, like is it like 3 in, 1 out, is it 2 in, 2 out, is it, if you get to the point where you're like like every step, like you're really kind of cruising along.
Mm.
But yeah, so there's different stuff on that. And then there's we talk a lot about like being in quote unquote zone 2, which is like that lower that lower level, kind of what you can continue on forever, and being able to carry on a conversation. Like on Saturday when I ran my long run, like I literally talked to a friend pretty much the whole time because, it's just trying to keep your breathing under control. And if you get to a point where, your breathing or your heart rate gets faster than that and you start to get like labored breathing or you can't talk in sentences, then, it's just a little bit of a gauge to use.
Now, what about breathing through the mouth versus the nose?
So funny. I read, and I should have got this book out before we did this. I have to think of The Oxygen Advantage is another book on breathing, and it talks about breathing, and basically that's kind of another way that you can keep yourself at the appropriate pace, I guess, if you will, if you're breathing through your nose. Like, but for me, I start to get like like especially if you're like just a little bit stuffy, or and then in the cold weather, like I just felt like I just had this like perpetual snot running down my face. So
Sounds
That's
great.
a lovely image.
I
I'll
know.
just sign up for
Thank
that
God for
program.
gloves.
I really want to go running.
Nice. Nice.
But yeah, so that wasn't anything that like there's definitely like stuff out there on it, but that's not something that has ever necessarily worked super well for me to breathe through my nose. I don't know, like sometimes I'm like, are my nasal passages not big enough or something?
Well, and that's the thing too. Okay, so it may not be even just nasal. So, and this is another thing in the book where he goes to this whole big. Do you remember the part about the catacombs in France?
Yes.
Oh, I don't remember that
The
part, but
mouth, the skulls,
The
like
I remember
jawbones of the skull.
yeah, yeah. Because I'm one of those people who has too many teeth for my mouth. I mean, I had
we're
four.
built to eat.
I had 4 permanent teeth pulled, and of course my wisdom teeth too, in order to make room, because I just had they were too big and too many for my small jaw. But I remember when we were reading this book and I was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
this
So
is
what
not
physical
good.
changes.
Yeah,
So
this
yeah,
is
what he
not
found
good.
was over the centuries of time that we've been evolving, our jaws have gotten smaller
It's from what we
and
eat, right? Like we don't.
tighter, and
Yeah.
we're not. And so he actually in the book talks about all these exercises you can do, like chewing and something where you put your tongue on the roof of your mouth, and I forget the name of it. It's worth I should have looked it up. But you could probably Google James Nestor jaw expanding exercise, and there are like people who do it. It's all over the internet. Like YouTube videos, TikTok, and they show before and after. It's mainly men because it's men who didn't have like a pronounced jawline, which is like, supposed to be like classically handsome.
Oh.
And they've done these exercises and they've literally changed the shape of their jaws over time, which is super weird. But he's saying like we don't chew as much. Our food is more processed.
Softer.
It's softer. Yeah. And we're also evolving to just not have as much room. And so we're not getting as much air through our nasal passages and our jaw and all that. So, and he says mouth breathing is unhealthy. After all his research, he basically
more bacteria, am I remembering this?
Well, I think that's part of it, because your mouth isn't designed to keep bacteria out. Your nose is. Yep. So some of the things he talked about was the health benefits, based on if your nose breathes. Now you can breathe out through your mouth. I think part of it was more like trying to, especially at night, breathing through the nose. But they were saying the sinuses release, and I'm looking this up now because I wanted to find it, a huge boost of nitric oxide, a molecule that plays an essential role in increasing circulation and delivering oxygen into the cells. Immune function, weight, circulation, mood, and sexual function can all be heavily influenced by the amount of nitric oxide in the body. So mouth breathing is affecting all of those things. Yeah. And so this is just a little aside in the book, and that's why I saved this page, because I thought it was really interesting. The popular ED drug known as Viagra works by releasing, guess what, into the bloodstream? Nitric oxide. Yeah. So interesting. So he started this
Claire's
whole
like,
phenomenon.
let me help you.
He started this whole phenomenon of taping your mouth shut
Did
at
you
night.
say I have a tip?
I did.
You have a tip?
No, I said, Lara, you have a tip for people.
Oh yeah, here's a tip. Breathe through your nose. So he
Stop that. You stop that, Amy.
This is supposed to be PG. Okay, maybe
right.
a little PG-13.
Sorry.
It's like a Disney movie.
Amy just,
A Disney movie.
You know how like some of the Disney movies,
well,
like
the Disney Channel movies,
they
yes.
like, no, I'm thinking like Shrek and like stuff like that, like where they say stuff that like if
goes
you're an
over the
adult
heads
you
of
get,
kids.
but the kids have no idea. Yeah. So
That's
I mean,
so
there's
true.
it's all
there's nothing there that was. It could be in a Disney movie.
Yeah, that's true. It could be a Disney movie.
I think
You need a little nitric oxide there.
How sleep deprived are you, Amy? Because
Yeah.
oh
definitely
boy,
a little.
Amy,
little
maybe
punchy.
you're not breathing through your nose at night. Okay, so how do you feel about mouth taping? Anybody want to give that a try?
I read that, about the
when he did that, like, and it's been a little while since I've read the book as well, but when he talked about all the changes and stuff that he noticed, because I forget how long of a period he went through, like where he
it was
basically taped his mouth
shut. Long, wasn't
it?
Like he did it, I think, until he trained himself to stop breathing through his mouth at night, because you can retrain your body, I guess.
Yeah, and then like he did the nose tape too, and like all the like changes in his like physical health and
all that.
It was crazy. Yeah.
So in the beginning in the book, he shuts his nose down.
Right.
This was to illustrate how bad it was.
Yeah.
And then he took all these blood tests, and I mean, he felt terrible. There were all these physical changes. Then he reversed it. Obviously, all of this was done under doctors' guidances, but and then he taped his mouth. Yeah, don't try this at home without reading the book. But so now they sell sleep tape, which is this tape. And so I actually not even jokingly, I kind of suggested this to my partner, Colin, who doesn't listen to this podcast, thankfully, because it's supposed to help with snoring. So he was like, I am not okay with taping my mouth shut. And I said, I was reading something online and it said, it's not like kidnap tape.
Duct tape. It's good.
It's not duct tape. It's literally, so I had to show him pictures. And then when he saw the picture, he's like, oh, well, I might try that. It's like a teeny tiny little, almost see-through strip. And it just goes on the middle of the top lip, the middle of the bottom lip. So that if you freak out in the middle of the night, you just over your mouth, it's fine. So don't freak out about mouth tape. It's not that bad.
What happens if you have a beard?
A beard?
Yeah.
You probably just have to make sure it's on your lip and not your hair. I don't think it's that strong.
Oh.
It's not.
Did he try
duct tape? No.
Did he try it?
It's not.
No, but he is willing to try the thing that keeps your mouth shut. It's like a contraption that goes around your head.
Oh my goodness!
I swear.
I'm picturing like Hannibal Lecter or something.
Well, and they also make mouth guards, and they are fitted to your mouth, and the whole purpose of them is to move the jaw forward into alignment where you can keep your mouth closed. And those do seem to help a little bit. But yeah.
Fascinating.
Yes, it's quite fascinating. I mean, yeah.
But he hasn't tried it yet.
No, other than he's tried the mouth guard thing, and I think it helps some, but I'm not sure it's actually keeping his mouth all the way shut.
Are you gonna help him with that?
No, he's gonna have to figure that out on his own.
Like put a little like ace bandage around his head.
Well, that's kind of like the second contraption. The second contraption does have like an elastic piece that goes under your jaw, and I'm like, how is that worse? How is that
Worse
better
than
than mouth?
yeah, right? Oh my goodness. Oh well.
I honestly
Everybody
feel
has a
like,
thing, right?
yeah,
Like everybody,
I'm like picturing this thing that's like a strap and you like ratchet it down.
it's
Like
not that tight, but yeah, that's kind of it.
Oh,
oh my gosh.
yeah,
That's
Anyways, so
really
yeah,
funny.
that is really funny.
it's
Yeah.
very interesting. I think everybody thinks that breathing is just about the lungs,
Mm.
and it's really about where the breath is coming into the body. And that's
Mm.
why they say it's so important that you're doing nasal
Oh,
breathing.
I knew I had a question for you, Lara. I thought
Michelle's
of it.
coming alive.
I'm like, wait, I had a thought a minute ago. So Lara, when you went through yoga training and, because that really involves breath as well. I mean, it's all kind of connected. So what has happened that has us all breathing so shallowly, right? Like
Yeah.
what did are humans just set up to breathe? I can't imagine that's our normal. Like
No,
how
so I
yeah,
have a theory, but I might be making this up.
excellent.
To
I
take a
love it
page
when
out
we
of
make things
Amy's,
up.
or gosh, Michelle's book. I do that
Okay.
all the
It's all
time.
right. I think we have a disclaimer that says
If I
we
say
think
Amy,
we're
I mean
smart,
Michelle.
but we're not doctors.
Yeah,
We're
we
not
do have a disclaimer that says that we
Yeah.
think we're smart, but we're not doctors.
okay.
And we do
This
make
is
a
one
lot
of
of
those
stuff up.
moments.
Yeah. We're gonna publish a book about all the made up stuff that we talked
Yeah.
about someday.
Yeah.
So this is my theory on that. We are not mindful. We generally are not mindful. We are not in our bodies at all times during the day. We have to-do lists in our head. Think about it. You're driving down the road. How many times have you been driving down the road and you get to your turn off and you think, how did I get here? Like,
Yeah.
I don't even remember the past 3 lights. Like, I think that happens to everybody. And it's when we're not being mindful, we're not paying attention to the moment that we're currently in. And that's what a lot of breath work does, actually. A lot of breath work takes you back to being present in the moment. So a mindfulness practice, which one of my favorite teachers, Cindy Reed, always says, yoga is a mindfulness practice. The yoga poses are there to make us be present in the moment. And our breath is the same way. So, and this goes back to many, 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 centuries old techniques of calming the body and the mind down, just focusing on the breath. Just taking whatever's going on in the moment and refocusing your mind on the feeling and the sensation of breathing. And so we did a lot of that in yoga as far as like imagining sending the breath into specific places in the body. I mean, we all know our bodies aren't hollow, but there's a really
They're
good
not?
technique. What? There's a really good technique to kind of experience interoception, which is the idea of the space inside the body.
Oh yeah. Martha Beck does a great anyway, shiny
Yeah.
object. Yeah.
I love it. So by sending breath into all the parts of the body, it's just a good way to practice mindfulness. And any kind of breath work can really, really like center you, calm you, ground you. And I say breath work, I'm using that very loosely. I'm meaning like concentrating on the breath. So then there's also like real breath work, like where you're doing like with the Wim Hof method, where you're actually learning how to heat the body. And this was also a yogic thing from like way back when these yogis would go into these caves to meditate for months at a time without heat or any, obviously no electricity. And they would use these breathing techniques to warm the body from within. And that's what Wim Hof basically does. So he's a really interesting one. There's the Buteyko, who is also mentioned. These are all mentioned in the book. Buteyko, he came up with some breathing methods to help people with asthma and congestion and relieving congestion. The other thing, where was I going with this? Yeah. Oh, breath work. So I actually did a breath work class. And this was more like what you might call holotropic breath work, which is when you kind of feel like disassociation from your body. And you can sometimes feel very strong emotions. Sometimes you get clarity. Some people have visions, but you're in your body, but you feel almost like you're not in your body. And I had a very talented teacher. She actually owns or used to own the Louisville Salt Cave. And I was really just like kind of shocked at how much physical, I don't even know what the word is, how much physical change occurred just from breathing. It was a specific, type of breathing, but it was also just like breathing, I mean, anybody
Yeah.
can do it. You do not need to know how to do it. Now, obviously, you want to do it with a trained instructor, just because your fingers can go numb. Like, I felt some very strange sensations. Sometimes you can become emotional. It's pretty amazing. I have to admit, it was a life-changing experience.
Ooh, I love those.
Yes.
I was gonna play Michelle and be like, say more.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay.
Because I'm like,
And
what kind of like
yeah, and then maybe I'll
physical?
shout out. Her name is Nicole Bartlett, and she does breath work in the Louisville, Kentucky area and other areas. But she's amazing. And so you kind of do this thing where you inhale very sharply, and then you just let your breath fall out normally. But you do that over and over and over and over again. And again, like, I would not recommend anybody do this on their own. I would go, with a facilitator and take a class. And they're usually very small and they're very personalized because, sometimes they might come over and put a hand on your shoulder or, whatever they feel called there that you might be needing in the moment. And I mean, I can't even really describe it. I just remember she had music playing and it was very interesting mix of music. I had a lot of emotions. I had a very clear vision of my sister, and there was nothing negative about any of it. It was just a lot of feeling. And then when I came out, I felt really wiped out. Like I could have just crawled into the corner and taken a 3-hour nap. It was crazy. And I definitely want to do it again. I'm looking forward to, finding another class and experiencing it again in the future.
So do you think when we're born, right? Like okay, this is going to sound like a crazy question. So are we born knowing how to breathe correctly, and then somewhere along the way, like what makes us not breathe? Like, I can't imagine we're born breathing incorrectly, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think yes and no, because his theory, James Nestor's theory, is that our physical bone structure has changed, making it less likely that we're able to breathe correctly. So in that regard, maybe babies
we
can
aren't.
be born. Yeah. And you've heard of people like with deviated septums and
Yep.
things like that. Those are physical, things in the
Impediments,
body.
right?
Impediments. Yeah. That's a good one. So that's, some people might be, but I think instinctively we're born to know how to breathe properly.
To deep breath.
To
Yeah.
do, or at least be better at breathing when we're young. Like we talk about that too. It's just like squatting. Like if you watch little kids squat,
Oh,
yes,
awesome.
Like what? And
oh
then
my
we
gosh,
wreck ourselves.
So completely shiny object. Talking about squatting. So this is weird and has nothing to do with breathing. But I was doing something. I was grooming some horses, and there was a young person there. Maybe he's 12 or something, and I squat really easily, right? Like, so I'm like down there doing legs and underneath the girth and all of that.
Is he like, look at this old lady?
Yeah, and he comes over to me. He goes, how do you do that? Because I go and do that for a few hours in the morning sometimes for a friend of mine. And 3 hours or something. And it's not like I'm squatting the whole time, but
Thank God.
right, I know. Yeah, that would be a whole other program. But he was like, how do you do that and not have back pain? Right. And he's like 12. Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
And I said, I do a lot of squats, and so I squatted, and he just thought that was hysterical. Like, how in the world do you who squats, right? Like, it was so just another one of those things. Like, and he's young. I'm like, well, you need to squat more because if your back is bothering you at 10 and 12 years old, so it makes me think of the breathing thing too. Like, I would never,
Yeah.
you just make these assumptions like, oh, well, clearly if you're a kid, you can breathe and you should just be running around and squatting and doing whatever. But something is different, right? Like when we were, something is different. And it made me think about the breathing too. Do we stop breathing deeply at a certain point?
I think we do because we get anxious. I think there's too much stress. There's more stress than maybe, 50, 100 years ago in different ways. Obviously, they had a harder lifestyle. But, I mean, if you think about the foods we eat, the chemicals that we are ingesting, the chemicals we're smelling, the stuff we use on our laundry, the stuff we wash our dishes with, think of all those chemicals we're inhaling into our respiratory system. Look at just watch TV for an hour in the evening and you will see so many ads for asthma and allergies. Like those to me are the top two I see constantly. I mean, there's lots of others too, but those two I see all the time. And then allergens in the outdoors. Like I feel like there's a lot of allergens outdoors, whether or not the climate's influencing that, and they're more prevalent all year round. And instead of trying to treat it naturally, we kind of just put more drugs on top of drugs and medicate ourselves. And why I'm a big fan of salt therapy, because it's good for all that, but in a natural way. But honestly, the breathing thing, I think, to go back to your question, I think it's because we're stressed and anxious. And even children, I feel like kids are getting so stressed and anxious, and they really don't have the tools. Unless you're lucky enough, some of these school systems now have programs. I know there's some in Kentucky that do. There's a really great program called Be Well in School, and they do some breathing. They teach teachers how, they teach kids how to get in touch with their breathing and calm themselves down. So I think it's just not being mindful.
Well, we're in constant fight or flight now, right?
Yes.
Constant, it never goes away. So that does make sense, because if you're in fight or flight, you're short, shallow breaths, right?
Exactly.
Running from the tiger, you're probably not hang, I gotta take a deep breath. No, you're short. So that
and our
makes sense to me.
amygdala is the little doohickey in our brain that keeps us safe.
Little doohickey.
And it's doing its job because it's trying to keep us safe, but at the same time, when it's triggered over and over again and we don't have a way to bring ourselves back down, you're right, it stays in fight or flight, and then it keeps following that. Our brains just keep following the same pathways over and over because it's the easiest thing to do. But you can change all that really probably just with some regular breathing exercises. And call it meditation if you want, but a breath meditation can really do wonders for anxiety and feelings of stress. People are like, oh, I can't meditate, I can't shut my brain off. And well, meditation and breath work isn't about shutting your brain off. First of all, if you're meditating with someone and they say, try not to think about things, that's
you
start
thinking about
it's not going to work. because then you're going to think about it
Yeah.
more. Like even at night, you know how when you go to bed, a lot of people, their mind starts spinning and it's like this kind of recurring, like over and over in scenarios. That's a perfect time to just refocus what you're thinking and start, like, even if you have to say it out loud, like, you know, I'm imagining my lungs expanding. I'm imagining the diaphragm moving down and my belly expanding, and put your hands on your body and feel it. And then you can kind of move into deeper meditative techniques that go along with the breathing, like noticing your heartbeat or, you know, doing a body scan, you know, starting with your head, moving all the way down through your body. And like, I think that's just being grounded in your body and mindful. And I feel like breathing and mindfulness just go hand in hand.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like when you get stressed, like I feel like you like hold your breath, like, you know, you're
Yeah.
just and it kind of makes me think back to when I was given riding lessons and stuff, you know, again, we're all horsey
Oh,
people, but I used to, and horses sense when you get all tensed up, and if when you don't breathe, you get more tensed up. I used to make my riding students sing the theme song to Jeopardy. Like, and I would just make them sing because it like made sure that they were breathing, and it gave them something else to focus on other than like going across a jump or something, you
oh,
know?
that's a great technique,
Um,
though.
because yeah, I feel like you get stressed, so you don't breathe, and then you don't breathe, so then your body's like, "Hey, I need some air," and
Yeah.
then you get even more tense. And I don't know. That's just my uneducated philosophy on the whole thing.
Well
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, breath, you know, breath is like what they say, it's life, it's energy, it's prana. It's like, you know, in the yogi world, like breathing is key to everything you do. You can do a billion poses and, you know, flow through all kinds of different asanas, and but if you're not breathing through them, you are missing out on benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably true of exercise in general. Like I'm guessing if you're at the gym and you're, you know, doing some kind of reps of some kind of machine or weightlifting, or even like some stretching, if you're not breathing through those exercises, your body is not getting as much benefit. You know, maybe it's tensing up and fighting against it, or maybe the oxygen isn't getting where it needs to in the body. I don't know. I could be making that part up.
Yeah, and I mean, we talk about like when you're lifting heavy loads, like I'm thinking of like back squatting or something like a lot of times you'll take like kind of a big breath in to kind of brace your core and then kind of blow it out. Or like same thing like when you're benching or something, they talk about blowing the bar away. So like you push and
Mm.
you know,
That is
just
interesting.
different.
And that
Yeah.
reminds me of a little exercise that you can do to draw attention to your core. And I do this a lot if I'm actually teaching a yoga class, but I probably got it from my yoga teacher. But it's this little exercise where you, as you exhale, and you can do like a purse your lips and kind of blow the air out through your lips. But when you do that, you will probably notice like a little bit of a, I don't want to call it tightening because, you know, we're trying not to do tightening things in yoga, but engagement is probably a better word.
Mm.
So as you blow air out through pursed lips, if you take a nice big breath and then sit up straight and tall, and then as you purse or slowly release it, you can feel some engagement around your spine.
Mm.
You can feel that those
Mhm.
inner muscles that support the spine, which that's really what core is. Like people think core is a
Thing is
flat stomach.
abs. Yeah.
Yeah, like abs are great, and you know, like you can have a strong core and not have washboard, you know, typical like six pack. You might be even better if you have the six pack, but you can still have core strength, because it's those inner muscles, the transverse
Yeah. It's like
abdominis
all around.
muscles, and there's support. So like this little exercise was that you'd be standing in line at the grocery store, and how many people stand in the grocery store and you get like that little like achy back thing going on, and so then you're like on one hip and then you're on the other hip and you're like cocking back and forth, and then your hips are sore, and you're like, God, because like this line is so long. So if you engage through the arches of your feet, kind of lift through your arches, make sure your feet are planted like a triangle on the floor, heels, on both sides of the balls of the feet. And then you do that little breathing exercise. It makes standing so much easier. Yep.
Michelle's like, I'm
trying it. I'm trying.
Yeah, it's easier if you're standing.
I was going to say, you're also sitting.
I mean, you can definitely do the core engagement breathing while you're sitting, but when you're standing, you can feel it supporting the spine, and it makes standing easier.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
But kind of back to the book, because I think the breath is so broad. Like, it's like sleep. Like, we could probably do 2 episodes on it, but we probably won't put you all through that. I mean, this book really is an amazing book. Like, it's just the stuff in here. You will never.
It's
fascinating.
Yeah, the story alone, I was like, what is he doing?
Yeah,
Why?
the stuff he puts himself through is, and he writes really, it's a very interesting read.
Yeah. So, it was definitely an interesting read. Really made me think. And you're right, it's a little like the sleep book where you're like, oh, well, we're just screwed anyway.
Yeah. How'd I stay alive this long?
I feel more confident about being able to handle, like changing my breath than I do trying to get better sleep.
I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have some sort of surgery on my mouth. I'm just doomed. Anyway, between the sleeping and the breathing, it just, oh, well. You do the best you can with what you have, right?
Yeah. Well, the next time you feel stressed, or before you walk in a meeting, or before you start your day, try the little focus on your breath.
I'll go check out on Insight Timer one of your meditations.
Your meditations.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. I do have a little one
on there.
I have a short 5-minute like breath focused meditation on there.
I think I've done that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a short one.
Is
it's
it
relaxation through breath, through breathing.
Yeah, so just a shout out, Lara Levine on Insight Timer. Go check out Lara's
Lara always has such a soothing voice.
She does, I know. I'm like,
puts me to sleep. I guess that this is a good thing though. I guess Lara puts me to sleep.
In a good way.
Yeah.
It's so boring.
It's so
Oh my gosh. Hopefully it will be a little calming presence in your day if you
That's
can
what we want to
take a few
do.
minutes and notice your breath. Notice your breath. Now that and we are recording this in the evening, so to give Amy credit,
yeah,
gets up way earlier than I do.
Yeah,
if you do that, we've been on here 45 minutes or so now. If you do that little practice that we did at the beginning, I may be.
Yeah.
That could be it.
Maybe
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was good. Thanks, Lara, for leading us in a little breath work and
well, thanks. It was fun. I like having a little audience to practice breathing with.
We're happy to be your audience.
Yeah. Happy to be your
It's always fun. Now, let's try if we can do our chant. Maybe we can just breathe through it together and do it quicker.
Okay.
So
ready?
We're gonna do monkey
count us down.
chatter. Who you hang with matters.
Yeah, let's do it quick this time. Take one deep breath in, and then with the exhale, we're gonna say the chant.
All right, we're gonna do monkey chatter, monkey chatter. Who you hang with matters.
No practicing aloud.
Okay.
All right. Ready?
I'm just trying to get the rhythm.
Yeah.
Ready? Oh, you hang with matters. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Monkey chatter, monkey chatter. Who you hang with matters.
I can't wait to see how that came out.
I don't know if that was better or not.
And I feel like we all had our heads bobbing.
I know we're like,
it did not. Bobbleheads.
If you see the video, it might be embarrassing.
In rhythm.
Oh God, that's great. Oh no.
Yes,
okay, wrapping it up
on YouTube now.
Well,
so,
as I like to say at the Salt Cave, breathe and be well, people.
I like it.
Oh my. Okay. On that note, Amy's got to go to bed. I don't know what time it is where y'all are, but it's my bedtime here.
Lights out.
Yeah.
Good
Okay.
night.
Good night.
Bye, all.